running away, one would think.
See, there's a few aspects within the outsourcing. If you look at, he has talked about manufacturing outsourcing. He has talked about services outsourcing. So there are possibilities where the manufacturing may get affected, where the China would have a larger hit than India, because you can always replace the machines, right, with a higher technologies and availability of the people.
Can you replace the costs? Because, the whole purpose of outsourcing is because the costs come down considerably, isn't it?
Exactly. So business fundamentals are always a cost optimization of the resources and the availability. That's how you go and compete with your other competitors. Those may not be American companies. So what he's saying as of now, which sounds like that, an American company is competing with an American organization and going and getting a product or a services at a cheaper price and then selling to the market. But on the contrary, the situations can be different, where an American company may not be competing with an American company. They may be competing with the other world's organizations, right? So their competitiveness will go down. So here, when you look at from the situation, what is going to arise, he can restrict the people, those who go to work in US, based out at US. That outsourcing is definitely the control, he can control it. But the job which has been outsourced, activities which are happening from the offshore activities, the companies will have a very, very lower limitations to do that, because at the end of the day, they'll outsource for two reasons. One is the cost, and second is the availability of the resources. Both are equally important.
Let's look at what he also said. He said that America is not a power that's on decline. It's a power that, indispensable in world affairs. Okay, nobody's taking that away. But the point is that the kind of statements he's making shows that perhaps America is on the decline to some extent, because why would he be afraid of outsourcing, if America was still the power that it is?
I won't say it's a decline. You can use it,
if you look at the globalization, it started from there, the strongest economy in the world. It's gone full circle. It's come back and it's hit the United States. Would you say that that's what's happened?
Yes, it has, because there has been, a tendencies of the, people, the mindset, the cost went up like anything, with the, availability of the resources, and especially the availability of the skilled resources in terms of manpower, right? Which got very, very limited. And today also, if you look at the resource availability in the US, whatever it is, and they're talking about unemployment, are they ready to come at the lower cost and work? They'll say no, right? So possibility and acceptance levels are still very, very low, where if you compare to the other part of the world, let's say Philippines, India, China, and so on markets, people are actually delivering the similar level of the services or their skills maybe at 1/4 of the cost.
So is outsourcing and globalization then one and the same thing to a large extent? Because, we look at globalization, it basically building up multinational companies across the world. And the fact is that outsourcing is, in a sense, more or less the same thing. When, would you feel that, globalization, the currency of the dollar, made the strong demand for the dollar. If he goes ahead with these plans, the dollar also, the currency as a currency would have some problems.
See, currency will have an effect. That's the move of an economy, what a government decides about the country, what direction they want to take.
Is it anti-globalization is basically what I'm trying to say.
You can call it's anti-globalization, but I don't see that, it's going to affect on the ground immediately, because it's more of a political, election-based agenda.
So it can't be done, basically. What he's saying, it can't be done.
It can't be done. It can be controlled. The people can be given a rosy picture that, fine, this is what we are going to implement, post the next election. This is what we are eyeing to do it. But when we look at on a ground level, the companies will have a resistance. So you can always have a public sector organizations, the government sector organizations, where can you create a certain number of employment. You can restrict the people, those who comes from a different part of the world and works in United States as country, by eyeing that's most happening country for the world, right? So that's level you can restrict. You can still create a job over there. You can force the companies that global organizations that local employment has to have a local people. But you cannot stop the outsourcing activities which is happening from outside.
So you are basically into the headhunting business. Do you find that there is an impact currently, with the global recession to some extent, that, jobs are not being created even here through the outsourcing problem?
No, outsourcing has not been the reason for not happening many of the jobs, right? If you look at it, it's a scenario of the global economy development.
But here in our country, is there a decline in outsourcing?
There is no decline in the outsourcing, but the number of positions, the number of requirements, which has become smooth. I won't say there was one situation which were happening where one individual used to have 5 jobs in a hand, 4 jobs in a hand. Today, maybe the one person having the 1 job or 2 jobs in a hands. And typically, like people, those who have spent certain time, develop their skills and, calibers into a certain industry segments. So the numbers have not gone down. You had 2 set of the organizations.
Right.
One is the set of the companies, those who are outsourcing to a third-party centers to get the activities done, which happens majorly into an IT sector. And then you have a knowledge process centers. Second, you have a larger companies, the larger organization, those who set up their own captive centers in India, and they make this as a center, maybe a outsourcing center, captive center for themselves, and they get a lot of activities happen from here, like India.
Is that being affected? No.
It has not been visually affected, right? So there's a requisitions which are happening. Those companies are already expanding their centers. Because in US you have 2 challenges. Not only the cost, which is the one challenge, and people are losing the, job, and there's not much of jobs are getting created. The availability of the resources are also a concern. In terms of which is actually making a companies to move from one location to a different, locations. In India, if you look at, you have a lot of permanent employment. But in US, if you look at, you have more of a project-based, temporary-based, and contract-based employments, where the people like to work for 3 months and 6 months, where they want to take a break, and then again they want to get into the new job, which consists more than 50 to 60% of the market.
Right.
So there's a temperament,
So that kind of culture is not going to be spreading across the world, is it? Or is it going to be spreading? I mean,
it is not going to spread so easily. I mean, it will have its own plus and minuses to it. But country like India has a lot of, a strength in terms of which is not centric to the US. It has the US is the largest customer.
Right.
But yes, which has been spread to other part of the world as well.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Goel, for joining us here on Business Wrap. Let's take a quick, let's move on.